because it's just getting drivers to do the same things that they used to do, right?
Yep.
They don't want to be in the paid truck parking business. They
Right.
don't. They genuinely do not. They want people to come in the store and spend money, and they want people to pump fuel, and they want them to be able to park there for free. That's the business that it used to
Yeah.
be.
And that's
Uh,
why they haven't charged for parking up until
yeah,
this point. It's because they didn't want
yeah.
to do they didn't want to be in that game, but
They
they had
don't
to
want to
evolve.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They literally don't want to be. And if only it was the way it was a few decades ago. But it's just that's not the world we're in anymore.
Before we jump into today's episode, a quick word from our sponsors. Looking for a freight specific CRM? Sales CRM is built exclusively for freight brokers and freight agents. Manage shipper sales prospecting, track your carriers, and monitor the lanes they run, all in one powerful platform, and all for one extremely affordable price. Try Sales free for 14 days with no credit card required. Visit sales-crm.com today. Operations teams, streamline your driver communications with vendor flow. Their platform organizes all of your driver communications in one place, boosting satisfaction with faster response times, and no more juggling between multiple apps. Get a free consultation today to see if vendor flow is right for you. Freight World, meet Purple Squirrel, the connector that links you with the top talent and winning opportunities. From inland transport to maritime freight forwarding, they deliver competitive commission splits and genuine support because they give a shit. Ready to earn more? Explore your options with Purple Squirrel. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the Think Freight podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Thomas Werdine, bringing back a familiar face, co-founder and CEO of Truck Parking Club, Evan Shelley. Welcome back to the show, brother.
Hey man, thanks so much for having me.
Dude, of course. It's been a long time. You were like episode number 2, 3, 4, something like that. We've both grown a ton since the last time you were on the show, and I'm glad we were able to reconnect in person at Broker Carrier Summit a couple months ago. And yeah, man, how have things been? How's life been in the Truck Parking Club game?
Yeah, man, and congrats on your successes and your
Thank
growing
you.
as well. But we're doing good. Things are great. I should have looked it up before this, but I would suspect we were at maybe a couple hundred locations the last time I was on here, maybe less.
Yeah.
And today we just crossed over 1,100 locations across the U.S. So
Wow.
things are good, and tens of thousands of drivers use us all across the U.S. So we're very fortunate to be a part of helping drivers get safely parked.
Yeah, man, that's absolutely fantastic. You guys have had tremendous growth since the last time you were on. I think you guys were just at a few hundred locations, and yeah, in the last 16 months, 14 months, you guys have had crazy growth. You're getting ready to attend a bunch of conferences right now. We were talking a little bit before this, but your lawyers told you not to disclose your location with the current CEO shootings. So, you are at a couple conferences. How has the conference scene been in 2024? What should people be on the lookout for next year?
Yeah, and it's a funny joke I made pre-podcast, but I'm unconcerned with disclosing my location. Can't
No, for
honestly,
sure.
but I'm in DC. It's a big week in DC for the driving community, for the veteran community. There's the Veterans Ready Summit that's going on yesterday and today. Transition trucking that ties in nicely with that event tomorrow, where a truck will be awarded to a brand new owner operator that
Oh,
is
that's cool.
transitioning. Yeah, that is transitioning from military life to trucking as an owner operator. We're fortunate to be a part of that and contributing some parking on to that winner. And then that ties in nicely to the Reefs Across America dinner tomorrow night here in DC.
Very
And
cool.
then on Saturday, the big day, Reefs Across America Day, thousands and thousands of locations across the U.S., the biggest one being Arlington, where thousands of people will come out and help put out wreaths on the graves of veterans.
That's
So
awesome.
just an amazing event, tied in really well with trucking. Was came last year and kind of checked it out, and got a feel for everything. And this year, fortunately, we're part of a few different sponsorships, and very thankful to be a part of it, and thankful for these organizations. So that's what we got going on this week, and then it kind of quiet down. It's pretty quiet the rest of this year. We may have one or two events kind of going into February where it all ramps back up again, with between BGSA, Manifest, Mats, some of those key events in the first quarter next year. But it'll quiet down some here in the next few weeks.
No, that's really awesome, man, and really great ways that you guys are, giving back to the community as well. You guys are always trying to do your best to give back to the community, so I think that's really great way to kind of end the year before things kind of ramp back up. Before we get too far, Evan, I know our podcast we did a long time ago. Why don't you give the kind of new listeners maybe a quick overview of Truck Parking Club and kind of who you are, and for anyone who may not be aware.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Evan Shelley, co-founder and CEO of Truck Parking Club. We're a two-sided marketplace, think like Airbnb for truck parking, where we help truckers find and reserve parking through our mobile app and website. And we help property owners and businesses monetize their extra space with truck parking. That can be a trucking company with extra space in their yard, a tow truck company, a truck repair shop, a warehouse, 3PL. Any space that's suitable for truck parking, we can get them in the business of truck parking same day. And why is that important? Most of your listeners will know there's a huge truck parking shortage. One space for every 11 trucks. It takes
Yeah.
56 minutes for the average driver to find parking on a daily basis. And we have worked very hard to be a part of the solution to that, and continue to work every single day, adding right now 5, 6, 7 new locations on average per day.
What is kind of maybe the criteria used to ensure that these locations and spaces are meeting these drivers' needs and their expectations?
Yeah, it's really the most important part of the business is
Yeah.
is who cares how many locations you have if drivers are having bad experiences when they book at those locations. So you have to be extremely thorough vetting locations, and at this point,
Yeah.
we're very dialed in on making sure that every single location that we add is suitable for truck parking, access, get parked, exit, that everything is
Yeah.
thought of before the property goes live on our platform. And we actually have human touch component, making sure that everything checks out. And we're very strict with that. If there are any questions on a property, we don't approve it until we're 100% sure. So we're extremely thorough with every location.
No, that's fantastic because I know we've talked about this in the past, but drivers are kind of the biggest component to everything we're doing. But me as a previous broker, what you guys are doing, trying to solve this truck parking shortage. How do you kind of envision your platform impacting those challenges kind of long term? We know that it costs a lot of money for the U.S. government to fund truck parking. So how do you envision that you guys are going to kind of help this on the kind of paid side?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I think there's three parts to it. I think there's taxpayer, public kind of uh, taxpayer dollar funded truck parking projects, and then
Yeah.
secondly, I think there is private sector buy, build, develop. So there's a few companies out there now that are buy, build, developing and managing properties. And then and also truck stops is in that category as well. And then there's a third,
Awesome.
which is really the truck parking club model, where we are a marketplace where we leverage existing space. And we also, for the private sector that are in truck parking, like truck stops or just private businesses that are by building and managing truck parking, we add all those locations to our platform, and make it very easy for drivers to find and reserve parking on our platform. Because
Yeah.
yes, there's a huge truck parking shortage, but there's also an awareness shortage, a truck parking awareness shortage. So just because you have 100 spaces in some location, if it's hard to find, if you have to look very hard to find it, whether that's digitally or driving around, there's a chance you may never find out it's there, and it doesn't really benefit. But if you create one singular place where a driver knows they can go to find 99.9% of all available parking, whether it's private, public, whatever the case is. Um, it makes it much easier to have that level of awareness. And also, like I mentioned, at the same time, we leverage existing space that where they may not be in the business of truck parking, just really creating this large marketplace of all things truck parking.
So do you guys list free properties and some of the like government properties like so the like off the side of the highway, things like that are kind of digitally shown through some of the signage across the highway systems?
Yeah, so any facilities that have real-time availability that you can tap into
Yeah.
through a feed, like a JSON feed, XML feed, we will have on our platform. Today, unfortunately, there's only like 150 today that you can tap into. Every time a new one comes online, we work to get that data and add it to our app. It's just
Yeah.
a free add-on that we give to drivers. We think it's the right thing to do. It's really unfortunate that today drivers they really have to lean on signage, which
Yeah.
isn't super reliable in terms of like if whenever you see that sign. So we give drivers the ability to have availability at a rest area in real time. So just a little thing that we added in.
Where are some of the, I guess, markets that you guys are trying to add space in the most? I know we hear a lot about issues in California, some not as much in Texas. There's a lot of space here in Texas, but where are you guys mostly trying to find and add spaces for drivers to be able to safely park?
Honestly, everywhere.
Yeah,
We add new locations everywhere across the U.S., rural, not rural, inner city, and we see demand for it everywhere as we continue
yeah,
to build out the marketplace and have more and more drivers. Freight moves everywhere, and even in rural areas where there is a lot of available space, the issue now has become we're not in a world that we used to be a few decades ago where you can pull into a grocery store parking lot and Johnny that owns the grocery store he doesn't tow drivers, he doesn't find drivers, he doesn't boot drivers. That day has really changed, and now drivers need a peace of mind wherever they park,
mm,
and that can include rural areas. We actually do keep as much emphasis on the rural areas as we do the more metro areas. But to really dial in on your question, there are definitely markets that are quite tough. Definitely LA, Inland Empire, Northern California, SF, Salt Lake City, uh, parts of Chicago, anything really up the East Coast as you start to get closer to New York City, Baltimore, um, parts of DC, the metro of DC as well. South Florida is rough. So there's definitely markets that are extremely tough. But we also know that the rural markets have their own place and have quite a need for it as well.
you know, 18 months ago when we first started chatting, there weren't a lot of options out there, whether that be, operators, marketplaces. There wasn't really anything out there when you guys first started. Are there any other like marketplaces or exchanges that, you don't have to name them, but that you guys are maybe competing with or starting to watch being developed currently, or is it just a lot of operators that are popping up right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are a few marketplaces and have been a few marketplaces before us that have
Yeah,
tried to figure out a truck parking marketplace, and really there's yet to be one that's gotten product market fit that's strictly a marketplace. It's really
yeah,
just us at this point. What is not understood about this business, which I just learned through putting in the reps, is it's very easy to stand up an app these days. It's quite
yeah.
easy. It's building. It's going from that point, which I would say the very beginning, to a functional business doing tens of thousands of bookings a month all across the U.S. that has a strong foundation behind it, whether it's through the tech, whether it's through the payment processing, whether it's through the operational team, the customer service team, the billing team, our property team, like building all those things out simultaneously while staying alive and providing a great experience to your customers. Like that's where you find out if you're gonna do it or not. And there's yet to be anyone do it. Perhaps there will be someone, a Lyft to an Uber, type situation, but today there just isn't one. You kind of see and hear things people say they are
Yeah.
this or they are that, but when you really uh, dial down into it, there's not quite anything there yet. Which everyone starts somewhere. I mean, Truck
Yeah.
Parking Club 24 months ago was not much to look at either, but fortunately we put in the work and we're here now. So it's a bit of a decision on if you're going to put in the work and figure it out or not. So no one really in the marketplace realm of things have got what you call product market fit. So just a
Yeah.
lot of customers continuing to use them. On the operator side, there's, I don't know, 10 or so truck parking operators that are out there building, managing lots, and it seems like they're all doing a good job. And we love having them on our platform and helping drive additional revenue to their lots and offering, our members more options. So love what those companies are doing, and kind of growing up alongside them. And ultimately, they're creating more parking, and we're happy to work with them.
What do you have all of those bigger operators, or what percentage do you have of those Big Ten players or so?
We have most of them, and for some reason or another, some of them we don't have yet.
Yeah.
Talk to me in another 12 months. We'll probably be working with every single one of them. But we have, most of them as it sits today.
There's been a lot of noise around Truck Parking Club, maybe the last few months on social media, Facebook, Twitter, X, LinkedIn. I kind of want to let you kind of address some of the issues, not even issues, but some of the noise that are out there. Some of the concerns about previously free parking spaces becoming paid. Why does that, I guess, typically happen, and why are drivers, so upset about this? Obviously, the money aspect, but why does that typically happen?
Yeah, I mean it's quite a complex topic, and we dove into it on calls with drivers that are not in support of certain parts of our business, and it takes 90 minutes to really like dial into like all the complexities of it. But
Absolutely.
at a high level, what has created some controversy, which we believe still aligns with what we're doing, is truck stops and really specifically independent truck stops kind of outside the megas. um, they have these lots, and there are drivers parking in those lots on a daily nightly basis, but the majority of people parking in their lots are not using their stores or buying fuel.
Yeah.
And the reason that happens is they're just outmatched on pricing between the convenience and the fuel and the loyalty programs, and it's um, uh, that is business. And what they do have is kind of these legacy businesses that has typically been in the family for quite a while, and typically they've tacked on quite a bit of real estate around those locations that can park, dozens or hundreds of trucks.
Yeah.
Um, and so these truck stops are deciding that if they want to uh, continue to be a viable business and keep their lot open, they're going to have to monetize that lot in some capacity, whether that's 10% of their spaces or 100% of their spaces. And ultimately, we started Truck Parking Club a couple years ago, and um, companies that were truck stops ended up, a few of them really early on reached out and was like, "This is interesting. What are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Well, here's what we're doing." And they're like, "Could we apply something like that to our lot?" And we're like, sure. And
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't really think anything about it. It didn't really like make me, I understood kind of broadly at the concept of like, these parking lots were free in some percentage, and then now they're going paid. But it was more of like, what's the truck stop's decision? And we're going to be in truck parking no matter what, whether it's with a truck stop or whether it is a tow truck company with extra space in their yard or a truck parking
Yeah.
operator. We're going to be in the business. And we think we deliver a world-class service not only to the property owners, but most importantly to the drivers, whether that's through customer service, easy to use apps, making sure that everything runs smoothly, protecting them against predatory towing, fine booting towing. We think we're a great fit for all things truck parking concerning the driver. So we got a few of those, and we had the discussion at some point there where it was like, should we be, in truck stops? Um, and the answer, and half our team's former drivers.
Yeah, I was just going to
Um,
ask you about that because I remember
yeah,
you guys staff a lot of retired drivers.
yeah, half our team still is former drivers. Like 15 out of 30 people,
Yeah.
something along those lines. And we had to make the decision of like, do we think this is the right thing to do? And
Yeah.
ultimately, we decided, for the reasons I just mentioned, that we're well equipped to deliver drivers a great experience. But on top of that, we also realized it's going to happen either way.
Yeah.
Um, trucks, it is, America is a free country with capitalism, and if a property owner wants to monetize anything or try, I guess the main thing is they can decide to try to monetize it,
Yeah.
and if they want to do so, they're going to do it. And a lot of truck stops we end up working with, or we're already doing it. They're just doing it not well. They're you know clipboards and knocking
Right.
on doors. And we've created a system where it's like, no, don't knock on the driver's door, don't wake them up. Use this digital technology we've created to look and don't mess with the driver. So ultimately, we decided to go ahead with it, and we thought, it's going to happen either way. This is
Yeah.
America, and if a truck stop wants to monetize their lot, they're going to. And
Yeah.
we're just a software and all the suite of products that comes along with working with Truck Parking Club. And really didn't think anything else about it. Got a little bit of pushback on adding new locations, but after we
Yeah.
talked to drivers one on one, they start to understand. Hey, I have seen a truck stop shut down before.
Yeah.
They are not printing as much money as what you would imagine. It is not a gold mine, as much as it is thought that it is. So if you want to keep these lots open, a lot of times monetization is really the only way you're going to do it. It's at least going to cover the cost of maintaining that lot. And these days, uh, anything to do with construction and development, from a site
Yeah.
development perspective, is just insanely expensive, even for maintenance. And so, for all those reasons, we decided to go along with it. Got some pushback. Continued just talking with our members, telling them why we're doing it, explained it to them. It continue, just blowed over. And then there's been a couple different times, I guess, in the last 6 months where people have really come at us. And I think how it changed this time was that it was combined with a lot of misinformation. Uh,
Mm.
this like kind of social media pushback. We had already talked to hundreds of drivers personally through our business, through our customer service about monetizing truck stops one on one, and talking to them about why we're doing it. But the thing that came with the social media was a lot of misinformation, just things just being thrown up that had no merit. Literally, like people saying that we uh, we allow predatory towing, we allow fining and booting in a
Yeah.
predatory manner, right? And that's how we make money. And saying we're forcing truck stops to do it, that we're locking them in contracts, which is not true. They can literally take down their property from truck parking club the same day. That we're lying to truck stops and making up lies. And just all kinds of just misinformation.
Yeah.
And that was what was pretty disheartening about the whole thing, was that just complete lies, um, uh, about almost anything you can imagine. Myself, me personally, who I am as a person, what I do, just like complete lies made up. I literally don't know where this stuff comes from. And in the beginning, we kind of took the approach of respond and explain ourselves. And what we found is when you counter misinformation with facts, that's fine in the moment, but you're actually just making that person more emotional, and you're giving them a response, which is ultimately what they want. And um, all they do is just drown out the facts that you bring up, or the request of facts. Like, hey, why do you say I have a mansion in Georgia and I've made all my money off screwing drivers? Like, could
Right.
you tell me what? Literally, none of that is true. I have no mansion in Georgia. Like, just tell me, like, how, like, tell me. And they just drown it out with more lies.
Mhm.
And so then it's like, okay, that's not working well. And so what we've decided to do is just continue to do a great job in the business and talk about the positive things we're doing in the business. And whenever someone brings up something that is factual and can be improved, we
Okay.
100% will do everything we can to make that experience better. But if you're going to be coming after us for things that are untrue or out of our control, um, there's really not much we can do. It's been a learning experience for us, and
Yeah.
um, I would say, outside of like the misinformation and stuff, I do understand why drivers don't like paying for parking at places that they used to not have to.
Oh, a
I
thousand
I I
percent.
mean, I don't like to pay for parking for my truck in places that I used to be able to park there in a city or whatever, for
Yep.
free. I mean, if it used to be for free and then the next day it's paid, that's a bummer. Like, it sucks.
Yep.
But but there is probably a reason for that. And ultimately, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And if it's a rest area that's paid for with taxpayer dollars, if that parking lot is free at a truck stop, it's paid for because that truck stop is executing on fuel and in-store sales.
Yeah.
And they're making money on that, and they know they don't need to monetize their lot. That truck stop is choosing to literally piss off its potential customers by going from free to paid parking. And you don't think they know that? You,
Right.
like, you don't think they think in their head, oh yeah, they may not like that. No, it's like, I have to stay alive, and I've got 100 trucks a night parking in my parking lot, and three of them are spending money with me. They make that business decision because it's America, and they want to have their own business, just like a lot of those drivers and owner operators. They want to do their own thing. They want
Yeah.
that freedom. And I would say I do feel for drivers on that front, though. And it's not easy from a emotional, psychological standpoint, and I get it. Unfortunately, this is the realities of the world, that truck stops have to make money and to stay in business until they become regulated. And if truck stops do become regulated, they will end up being subsidized by the government, and perhaps all the parking can be free then.
Right.
And that will be a different world, if that happens. Quite Not quite capitalistic, as much capitalism as you'd like to see America be, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I guess that's the kind of the fastest I can kind of run around all the topics, but
No,
it's
for
been
sure.
a it's
For
been
sure.
eye opening.
No, absolutely. And I want to dive into just a little bit of it because, I'll kind of summarize kind of maybe what you said because there was a lot there. And I think that kind of that conversation that is going around is so much around those free spots becoming paid. But like you said, this is not you're not sitting here with a gun to these owners' heads saying you have to do this. This is them making a business decision. And while that business decision impacts truckers, and yeah, it really sucks that, in a lot of times it looks and feels like truckers are getting the really shit end of the stick. And sometimes, in a lot of times, they are. Um, you just kind of have to factor that into your operating expenses. You have to factor that in now to, hey, every night I've got to find a place that maybe isn't free to park or find new free parking locations. It's we're just kind of becoming we're at that point in I think the world, or just in the point where, like you said, it costs so much money to upkeep these lots to do that, especially for these 80,000 pound trucks. It's not just for cars and vans coming in and out. There's a lot more wear and tear. It's a lot of money to maintain, and they're not doing this out of the they don't want to take this away and piss off, like you said, their audience or their customers. But again, they have to stay in business. And if these 100 drivers, they have 100 spots, are not coming in, they're not buying diesel, they're not buying soda, they're not buying snacks, they're not buying dinner. That really hurts into their overall profit because that's where they expect to make some of their money. So they've got to in turn say, hey, we got to change our business model. And that's kind of where they see, hey, there's this marketplace where we don't have to go out and build signage and have hire two new lot attendants with clipboards and new security cameras and all these other things that they may have to do to run a functional truck parking business. They can say, hey, we can very easily add cameras and lights and then just have truck parking club or whatever marketplaces that are out there to run it. And that way we can just have less thoughts about having to do these kind of things. Is that kind of the overall like aspect of what is happening to these previously free spots?
Yeah, 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 essentially.
Yeah.
It is ultimately making a business decision. And
Yeah.
I would say also on top of that, pretty much all of our truck stops, I need to have the count on this, but offer some type of incentive. So let's say you pump 75 gallons of diesel, that gets you free parking. If
Yeah.
you spend X number of dollars in the store, that gives you free parking. And also sometimes they do it the opposite, pay for $15 in parking and get a free shower,
Nice.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Most all of our truck stops have something like that. And that was part of the misinformation too. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, they couldn't wrap it through their heads that most of our locations provided incentives. And and,
Right.
and why would they be okay with providing incentives? Because it's just getting drivers to do the same things that they used to do, right?
Yep.
They don't want to be in the paid truck parking business. They
Yep.
don't. They genuinely do not. They want people to come in the store and spend money, and they want people to pump fuel, and they want them to be able to park there for free. That's the business that it used to
Yeah.
be.
And that's
Uh,
why they haven't charged for parking up until
yeah,
this point. It's because they didn't want to
yeah.
do they didn't want to be in that game, but
They
they had
don't
to
want to
evolve.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They literally don't want to be. And if only it was the way it was a few decades ago. But it's just that's not the world we're in anymore. If you look at like European countries, I like pretty much all of them are paid at this point, from
Yeah.
everything I've heard. And I think for whatever reason, economies kind of go in that direction, and things get more expensive, and economies change. And I would say on top of that, uh, you know, there's no such thing as free parking even for the driver, even for the
Absolutely.
carrier, right? So let's say driver finds a free stop at a rest area, but he's got 3 hours left on his clock, but he knows the next 2 hours of driving is going to be very questionable on if he can find parking.
Yep.
He's going to stop even though he has 3 hours on his clock. What's that driving worth? Now you reproduce that over a year. What's that inefficiency worth? Um, so yes, you're parking for free every time, but are you stopping so early that you have all this time left on your clock that you could have ran X number more loads over a year, which makes X more money? There's definitely a case to be made for that. So it's not actually free because you have to stop whenever you find the free parking. You don't stop when you decide to stop. With paid parking, if done properly through companies like Truck Parking Club, you have 3 hours left on your clock, and you know it's highly likely you've got a place 2 hours or 2 hours and 30 minutes away that is in the direction that you need
Yep.
to go. Reserve that spot, pay your $20. What's that worth? Especially to an owner op.
Yeah.
They're very aware of their dollars and cents, and that's worth a lot. Now, for company drivers, here's part of the pushback too. For company drivers that do not get reimbursed for paid truck parking, that sucks,
Absolutely.
bar none. They're
Yeah.
making a wage and they're having to pay for parking. That really sucks. And for some reason there was it got construed that we didn't care, and that's not the case. Like it's not that we don't care that these drivers making paid by the mile or paid by the hour, however the carrier pays them.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all. And we think that they shouldn't have to pay for parking. And, the more time we've had to think about this, we do think, well, actually, we know the best carriers do cover parking for their drivers. They
Yep.
do. They do. And when they do that, they have higher retention, they have happier drivers, less stressed drivers. So, um, yeah, I guess to sum it up, we've learned a lot from this whole experience, and continue to learn. And I, the interesting thing probably is we felt the same way before people attacked us on social. It's just now it's
Yeah.
required us to just talk openly about it. But it really hasn't changed the way we feel about drivers. Where it's not like they like we were doing something one way and they like found that we were screwing over drivers and now we have to change our ways. Everything we say and do now that we've had to say publicly because of the misinformation is exactly how we felt before all of it. It's just required us to now, have conversations like the ones we're having with the one I'm having with you right now.
Yeah, it's kind of that tough balance, right, of dealing with kind of that social media noise, but also realizing you guys have thousands upon thousands of very happy customers and happy drivers who are constantly advocates for you guys, constantly happy with the services that you guys do provide because they are getting those safe parking spaces. They don't have to worry about those issues. So, it is kind of that delicate balancing act, but you also kind of have to realize at some point you're not going to make everyone happy, and you're not gonna always make people realize that you guys are not the villain here. You're just trying to help with a problem, and yeah, you guys make money from that, but you guys also have to survive, and you have 30 plus employees that you guys employ, and that in turn feeds their communities and things like that. So you guys are building something that's a lot bigger than I think what a lot of people even realize.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, how we think about it is solve a big problem, provide so much value to your customers, most importantly the driver, on getting them safely parked, making them more efficient, helping solve that problem and be a part of that solution that will create a very valuable business. But that's the beauty of America.
Right.
Help other people solve their problems and create a lot of value, and you create a valuable business. Like what's better than that? That's the country I want to live in. And I want to help. I want to be able to create businesses that help people that are not funded by the public sector. You
Yep.
know, so I think we feel very fortunate, and we feel very fortunate to uh, help drivers on a daily basis. And fortunately have gotten tens of thousands of drivers safely parked all across the U.S. So we're yeah, like I said, we're very fortunate to be in this position and be a part of the solution and kind of leading the charge in truck parking.
As we're starting to wrap, Evan, I wanted to kind of get some other opinions for you going into 2025 and kind of what you see as some of the challenges for truck parking going into 2025, especially facing a new presidential administration coming up. What do you guys see as some of those big challenges coming up in truck parking?
Um, it's all speculation, but I think a lot of the money that's in, out there, 950 million or so, that'll build 10,000 or so spaces. I think that'll get through. I think that'll get done. I
Yeah.
think it's a bipartisan issue. I think everyone knows we need it, and that money needs to get out there as soon as possible because it's going to take a long time to actually put that money to work too.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's probably very likely. I do think there will probably be more awareness on the truck parking issue, but I do think with the current administration, they're going to be pushing for great private sector ideas. I mean, as you're seeing with Department of Government Efficiency, that there's probably not a line item for funding, a lot of things public sector that's going to be happening. I do hope those bills get through though,
Yeah.
and I think they will. But I just wouldn't suspect that we're going to be pushing any publicly funded programs. But I do think this administration will help private sector businesses flourish and create
Mhm.
private sector solutions to things like truck parking,
Yeah.
and many other things, which I think is the great thing about America and what America's been built on. It's not been built on publicly, mostly publicly funded programs. That's not the America that we live in. So I would say it's highly likely that it will go that route with all things truck parking. I wouldn't. I guess cumulatively for the driver, I think it'll be probably less about. I think collectively the business of trucking will improve. Truck
Yeah.
parking aside, I think collectively pulling a lot of small levers around the entire trucking community or trucking business and helping businesses flourish in general in the U.S. High tide raises all boats, and I think trucking community will benefit from that. I really do, and I think things will kind of loosen up from
Yeah.
really the business side of things, and I do think that'll help drivers, carriers, anyone really in and around the trucking industry. And I mean, you've heard like Craig and FreightWaves say, they think things are going to loosen up too, and they think that we're kind of on the up and up here. And I, I don't look at data really at all like someone like Craig does and his team, but just from a ethos standpoint, I think it's highly likely that that's where we're headed. So I think all around, I think there'll be a lot of positives in trucking, and hopefully companies like Truck Parking Club and others can continue plugging away and providing some private sector impacts. And I think that's what hopefully we see in 2025 and beyond.
Evan, I appreciate you coming back on the show and sharing what you guys have been continuously building for the last couple of years. If our audience wants to get in touch, if they want to know where they can find you, where
Mhm.
can they check you out?
Yeah, so if you go to truckparkingclub.com and you go down to the footer, it has all of our socials. It has a contact us page. For me personally, if you go to LinkedIn, Evan K. Shelley on LinkedIn, pretty active on there. If you shoot me a message or something, I'm going to see it, or someone on my team is going to see it. And if it makes sense, we'll get back with you. And if you're a driver listening to this, a carrier listening to this, and just have general questions about the business, we have a 24/7, 365 customer service line made up of all former drivers. All of them either have a CDL or had a CDL. The lady that runs that program, 30-year CDL holder. But that number is 888-899-PARK. That's 888-899-7275.
Make sure you guys check out Evan. We'll have all the links in the comments. If you guys like today's podcast, make sure you give it a like and review. Helps us out a ton. And we do drop 3 weekly newsletters at thinkfreight.io Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. And don't forget to think freight.